Hello everybody, Cassandra Von Worsley with you here. The Daily Shift is coming back to my business Facebook page. So in getting back into the groove of FB Lives, I figured I'd bring an on-the-spot Daily Shift episode to you today. Be sure to check out CassandraVon.com. Be sure to check out my books, OvercomingFearBooks.com. Today's topic is actually based on a book that I'm currently writing called Rebuild Yourself. And Rebuild Yourself will be up at overcomingfearbooks.com in a few weeks, so you'll want to grab that because we are talking about how to rebuild yourself. But let's start in a different place. So as a coach, I get this question a lot. And this is a question I ask myself a lot. How do you become a version of you that you've never been? So this is the question that I get. I know what I want. I know what I want in my life. I know who I want to become. I know what's missing from my current life. But how do I become a version of me that I've never been? How do you, and here's the real question. You might know that where you are in life is not where you want to stay. And you might have this vision of who you want to be in the future and what you want to be doing and how you want your life to look in the future. But there is this space in between. There is this, how do I go from the life I've always known to a life I know I deserve and a life I know I want, but I have no idea how to get there. So today I'm going to answer that question. And I talk about it in my upcoming book, Rebuild Yourself. How do you become a version of you that you've never been? Now, let me say a couple of things. And I say this in the upcoming book, Rebuild Yourself. Rebuilding yourself, creating a brand new life, a brand new story, becoming the you always knew was inside of you, but could not prior to now figure out how to create. That is a process that takes years. So let me just be clear. This is not I'm going to boot camp becoming the best version of me. I'm going to say some affirmations and I'm going to become that is not what this is. Rebuilding yourself, if you're going to really do it, let me back up a little bit. Number one, rebuilding yourself, you're going to do throughout your entire life. So you might have a vision of who you want to be in 5 years. When you get to that version of you in 5 years, you're going to have another vision of who you want to be 5 years from then. So we have to learn how to successfully rebuild ourselves over and over and over again, because over the course of a lifetime, we're going to rebuild ourselves many times. Sometimes we will rebuild ourselves because we want to. Sometimes we will have to rebuild ourselves because tragedy happens. We lose things, people, relationships, situations. Sometimes the rebuilding process is forced upon you, and sometimes it's something that you actively pursue. Either way, in order for you to do this, to become a version of you that you've never been, to weather life's storms, you've got to do certain things. So let's talk about what those certain things are. So the question is, how do I become a version of me that I've never been? How do I do that? Step number one. This is the most important step. You have to choose to believe that it's possible. Can I emphasize the word choose? You have to choose to believe that it's possible. So many people look at where they are and where they want to be, and they say, but how am I going to get there? How? Like the how will crush your self-esteem. Asking the how question too early will give self-doubt and fear a ton of power. How is not relevant in the beginning of this process. You will figure out the how. But the first thing you've got to do to become a version of you that you've never been is you have to choose to believe that it's possible. That means you need to say to yourself, okay, I don't know how, so we know that. Do I have the ability to change? I've changed before. I've made changes in my life before, although not as big as what I'm talking about right now. Do I have the ability to change? Yes. Is it possible that I could improve my life? Not, is it feasible? Not, do I know exact? Is it possible that I can improve my life? Yes. Can I be more of who I really am? Even a little bit more. Even a little bit. Can I be more of who I really am? Yes. In every moment. Yes. So you start to ask yourself questions that brings you into a place of possibility so that you can choose to believe that it's possible. But here's what I'm going to say about that. You don't have to fully believe that it's possible. You just have to choose to believe that it's possible to become a version of you that you've never been. And if even 1% of you says yes, you can choose to believe that you can become a version of you that you've never been. Now, second step, you need to identify the gaps and build a bridge. So this is where people get stuck in the how, because a lot of people will go, I'm here, I want to get over there, and there's this huge gulf between who I am and who I want to be. But here's the thing. In order for you to build the bridge, you have to know how big of a gap you have. So you need to, in step number 2, if you're going to become a version of you that you've never been, you need to identify the gaps and build a bridge. What is the difference between who you are today and who you want to be? How does the future version of you think, speak, and act? That's another gap. Like, how does the version of you that you want to become handle today? How does that person wake up? How does that version of you operate? How does that version of you work? How does that version of you sleep? How does that version of you think, talk? How would that version of you live out today? That's how you identify the gaps and build a bridge to that version of you that you've never been. Step number 3, you've got to, now that you've identified the gap and you're working on building a bridge to bridge the gap, you've got to think, act, and behave like the person you want to become. And here's the end. Be consistent with it. Be consistent with it. Here's the thing. You may not have ever been the person that you're going to become, that you want to become, but you have to believe that you can become a version of you that you've never been enough to decide that today, in what you do and what you say and how you think and how you interact with other people, you're going to show up as that version of you now. You do not need proof in order to do this. You do need faith. You do need faith. So I want you to understand that a change of identity, this is what we're talking about. If you want to become a version of you that you've never been, a change of identity requires vigilant consistency. Let me say that again. A change of identity requires vigilant consistency, meaning for a while, as you identify the gaps and you build a bridge to that different version of you, you're going to have to monitor your mind like crazy. You're going to have to constantly micromanage and check, am I thinking the way that version of me would think? Am I making decisions the way that version of me would make decisions? Am I keeping people in my life or out of my life the way that version of me would? Are my standards as high as that version of me that I've never been? A change of identity requires vigilant consistency. Listen, here's why it requires micromanaging your mind and your beliefs and your actions. You have been the version of you for a long time. Every version of you that you've been for the entirety of your life. So if you've been the way you are right now and you want to become a completely different version of you in 10 years, you're going to have to micromanage and be vigilant because you've been who you are right now, this version of you, for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years. Like, if you want to get to a different version of you in 10 years, you got a lot of unlearning to do. So you need vigilant consistency. Now, listen, to transform into a higher version, you have to be vigilantly consistent and be congruent with that version of you for as long as it takes. For as long as it takes. Don't use the fear of getting it wrong as an excuse to not remain vigilantly consistent to being who you want to be. At the end of the day, you're going to get it wrong. At the end of the day, you're going to go back to old habits and old ways of thinking and being. But every wrong path moves you in the right direction. I really want you to hear that. Every wrong path moves you in the right direction. Step number 4, to become a version of you that you have never been before. Let no one, and I said no one, let no one stand in the way of you becoming you. You have to keep in mind, you're not saying you want to become somebody that you aren't. You're saying that you want to become a version of you, more of you. So you're still becoming you, but it's a version that you've never been before. And you have to be very careful about how you set your boundaries, who you allow into your life, who the hell is in your inner circle. If there are emotional vampires, toxic people, people who are just sapping your energy and wasting your life, kick them to the curb now. The future version of you that you've never been would never allow those people even 100 miles in your radius. So what are they doing in your life? So step number 4 is let no one stand in the way of you becoming you. How does the most powerful version of you set boundaries? How would you deal with emotional vampires if you are the version of you that you have never been? Listen, I want you to keep in mind, a lot of people rationalize keeping emotional vampires in their lives because they say, well, it's just the way so-and-so is. It's just the way they are. Listen, a little bit of drama goes a long way. You're not going to have a little bit of somebody's toxicity and it not impact you. Nobody is superhuman in that way. So stay around no one, and I mean no one, who insists on reminding you of your mistakes and holding you to who you used to be, or intentionally holding you back with their negativity, their misery loves company, their complaining, whining, and bitching. If you've got folks like that in your circle, get them out. Let no one stand in the way of you becoming you. 5th and final point. How do you become a version of you that you've never been? Every day you got to wake up, and like an actor or actress, you've got to embody the role in advance. You see amazing performances in movies. You see people who are just, you don't see them as their real selves, because as an actor or an actress, they are just embodying the role. They own the role. We have to do that as well to bridge the gap between the version of us that we are today and the version that we want to be. Treat it like it's an acting role, and create a biography of the future version of you. How does that character, that future version of you, wake up, go to sleep, think, eat? What does that version of you eat? Where does that version of you go? How does that version of you interact with other people? What do they do for a living? How do they approach their work? And then at every single moment during the day, see yourself putting on the character of the future version of you, and like an actor or actress, embody the role. And I would give this assignment to people for 24 hours. So my challenge to you today is just do that for the next 24 hours. Not a week, not a month. You can go back to being the old version of you after 24 hours. But for 24 hours, embody the version of you that you really want to be, a version of you that you have never been, and just see what happens. Just see. You'd be amazed what happens in 24 hours when you take the role of actor or actress, you visualize that future version of you, and you just take it on, and you just go. You just live it for 24 hours. It will change your life. So again, in my new book that's coming up, Rebuild Yourself, I talk about how to become a version of you that you've never been. I talk about what is the process of rebuilding yourself. It is not out on Amazon yet. It will be in a couple of weeks. Check over comingfoorbooks.com, and I will be back, now that I'm back to FB Live, with more daily shifts. But this was the daily shift. You can check me out at CassandraVaughn.com. I will see you guys later.